G'day people, I'm Sharon. Welcome to my channel. Today we're doing applique or applique depending on where you're from in the world. First style I'm going to do, if you have a machine where you have no control over the width and length, the machine just sets them, this is how you do it. So that will be the first section of the video. The second section of the video will show you how you can do corners with zigzag. If you've got full control over the width and length of your machine, your zigzag, but when you do a zigzag, the width comes from both sides, comes in and goes out like this. And it will also show you how to avoid getting an open corner like that. This third section of the video will show you how to do a mitred corner. And this is possible when you have a machine that will keep a straight side on the right, and when you do the width changing, it goes, the right hand side stays straight and the left hand side goes in and out, but this side stays straight like this. And with those ones you can get a mitred corner. There's a little bit here which I haven't actually shown. This machine that I did this on has actually got precision down to 0.1 millimeters on its width. This is how it would turn out if you've only got precision down to 0.5 on your width. You can still do it, but it's not quite as good. You just have to round the numbers that I used here. So a 1.4 becomes 1.5, or a 2.1 becomes 2. So you're just rounding numbers. If you have a Janome FD206, I'm not actually working on that, but I'm going to show you as best I can how you can do a zigzag applique on that machine. And I have set up my machine here to be sort of the equivalent of your middle-sized zigzag. Now, what I want to do first, before I actually start working on this, is check. Is my bobbin thread coming up to the top? Because I really don't want it to. And in fact, I would like it to be, my top thread to be going down a bit further, because I really do not ever want that white thread that I've got on the back to be showing on the top. So I'm going to decrease the number on my machine to try and make these red bits, or pink bits actually are, more obvious on the back on both sides, because I don't want the white stuff to be visible. So I'm changing my tension. And you can see there's more of the red showing on the back, and that's what I want. I actually want that red stuff to be showing, maybe even a bit more than that. Get that needle down just outside the fabric, and it's just a matter of trying to keep your machine stitching in the same place. When you're coming up to a corner, when we're doing applique and we're turning a corner, and I'm going to turn and go that way, my needle has to be down on the right side when I turn that corner, and I want it to be right near the corner of the fabric. If it's not going to come down in exactly the right place, then the idea is for me to lift this, give it a bit of a shove along, and make sure it's in the right place so that that needle comes down at that corner or a little bit outside it. Then lift the foot, turn the fabric in the machine in here, and now we start going down this side. I'm a little bit too far over. There we go. Now this is where I started with this piece of thread, and I'm going to come underneath. I'm going to pull on my bobbin thread. There it is. Pull that to the back, and I can tie that off. And then I can keep going. And I want to put my final needle point down pretty much where I started. There. Take the fabric out and cut it off. Cut the thread off. Whoops, I'll find it eventually. And then I need to do the same thing again. I've got to find that other needle thread, take it underneath, and knot them together. So if you have a Janome FD206 or any of these basic machines where you can't control the length and width of the stitch, you can still do applique. You can't close these stitches up any closer, but you can get an effect like that, which is really quite acceptable for most people. I'm now using a machine that has full control over the width and length of the zigzag, but there is only one zigzag, and there's something I need to know about this. I'm going to set my stitch length down to 0.4 maybe. But I want to find out something about how this zigzag stitch is put together. Let's start with it. Actually, we'll start with it as big as it can go. You can see that's quite a big zigzag, and I'm keeping the edge of the foot here. Now, as I'm sewing, I'm going to bring this down, but I'm going to keep the foot at the edge. Now, when we get down to 0, that's zigzag with a width of 0 is a straight stitch, and now I'm going to go back out again. I'll do a lock stitch, keep my foot down until it finishes, and then lift the foot, lift the needle, and there we are. Now what I'm hoping you can see there is that when my zigzag got narrower and narrower, it went in from both sides and came out again. And this is what you usually find with most machines. Their zigzag does this. If there's only one zigzag, it will do this. So I've worked out what length I need my stitch length to be at to give me a nice coverage there. But something I haven't done, and I need to do before I start, is to change the foot. The F foot has actually got space under here for that build-up of thread to go through and not get stuck. So these are the F foot in the Janome is the one that is recommended for doing satin stitches and decorative stitches. So let's change it over, which I should have done, I should have thought about. And we will come in here. Now this particular machine has got a lock stitch, but I've already worked my way through that lock stitch. And the other thing that's really handy about the F foot is that it's clear. And because it's clear, I've got a nicer indication here of where the needle's going to come down. I can see there's a little V there. I hope you can see that on the foot. The needle's coming down around about the right-hand side of that little arrow there, the inverted V. And what I'm going to be therefore doing is trying to keep this fabric just a little bit inside that. So off we go. Now the machine, I'm not pushing it or pulling it, all I'm doing is directing it. One of the things that's a bit easier with these machines, I can have my needle in a position where it's going to finish down, and I want to do that. Still want it to finish on the outside edge. But because I'm now doing this on a much shorter stitch length, I can be much more accurate about where that needle comes down without me having to push and pull and lift the foot, because it's only taking such short stitches anyway. I want it to be just past the end. I've probably gone one stitch more than I needed to, but there we go. Oh, that's about right. So having turned that corner, and I've turned it with the needle on the outside there, I'm ready to go. One of the problems now when I take off is that as I turned it, I used up the movement that the machine would normally take on this first stitch. So I'm going to put a little bit of pressure behind it in order to try to not end up with my first stitch actually being behind that previous row. Now I'll let it go. Coming back to the beginning, and the same as I did with the other one, if I had a lock stitch I could just cut things off, but I didn't do a lock stitch, so I'm going onto the back and pulling my needle thread through, and then I should knot that off. And because I'm going to be stitching over this, I just like that to be knotted off before I get to it. When I get back here, I'm going to keep going till I'm right at that end. It doesn't matter now whether I finish on the left or the right. Needle up. Let me see if I can get a good picture of that for you. That one was the one I did and just put a little bit of pressure on. This one here, I actually put too much pressure on. And so I've got one big stitch there, which would be preferable not to do. It's better to have a nice even stitch. So that is a nicer way to do it than the FD206 was capable of. So all of the older machines that just have the one zigzag on them, they are likely to be this kind of zigzag that pulls in from both sides like a centered justification. And this is the kind of corner that you can do with these, but you always need to make sure that you finish on the outside, because as I showed you in my video on tension, I'll just do some here and show you the wrong way. So if instead of finishing with my needle on the right hand side when I turn, I finish with it on the left, this is what it's going to do. So instead of getting a nice square corner, oops, sorry, I've got a corner with a hole in it. So you need to make sure when you're turning corners, the needle is in that side that is away from where you're turning, so that you will then turn and go back over the beginning of the end of the last row of stitching. This machine has a zigzag stitch that is shown by a zigzag with an R on it, and this particular one has lots of control over how wide I make that zigzag. I've set it to 0.35, so it's going to be a satin stitch, and I'm just going to play with the width of the stitch. It's going to start out with a lock stitch, and I'm going to make the stitch go narrower and then wider, and then narrower again. The straight line is on the right now, so this is like right justification in a word processor. When I change the width, it only moves on the left side. It doesn't change where the right hand side of the stitch is coming down. I've put the needle down just outside the fabric. In fact, what I'm planning to do is run the fabric pretty much in line with the space in the foot. I'm starting out with a 7mm stitch, and here we go. Once again, my entire job at the moment is directing. I'm not pushing or pulling, I'm just directing. The needle to come down on the right hand side there. I'm going to lift the foot and turn and put the foot back down. Now, if I was doing it the way that I did it last time, I would just carry on and I would have a squared off corner here. But I'm going to do something different. We're on the right hand side at the moment, and I have to remember that. And I'm about to take the size of the stitch down to 0. And I'm going to go, using my needle up down, I'm going to go up, left, up, right. So I've just done the left and right of a zigzag. And now I'm going to take my stitch width up to 0.7, and I'm going to go up, left, up, right. Now I'm going to take it up to 1.4 and go up, left, up, right. Up to 2.1, go up, left, up, right. 2.8, up, left, up, right. 3.5, up, left, up, right. 4.2, up, left, up, right. 4.9, up, left, up, right. 5.6, up, left, up, right. 6.3, up, left, up, right, and back up to 7. And then I'm going to carry on. Foot and turn it. perhaps you can see there. By doing that, I have just mitred the corner. Now this machine did do a lock stitch, I think, right at the beginning. So I should be able to just trim that off. So I'll trim that off there. I should have been a bit closer to the edge, but it's probably not going to be terribly visible. So let's just carry on. And now I've got to do it backwards. So if I'm at 7 at the moment, I'm going to go down to 6.3 and go up, left, up, right, and then down to 5.6. You need to know your 7 times tables for this. Up, down, up, right, down to 4.9, up, left, up, right, .2, up, left, up, right, 3.5, up, left, up, right. I am giving it a little bit of help at the moment at the back. I'm not sure if I need to or not, but I just feel like I want to. Up, left, up, right, 2.1, up, left, up, right, 1.4, up, left, up, right, 0.7, up, left, up, right, and then down to 0, go lock stitch. It's a pretty amazing effect, isn't it? Using zigzag for applique can be done a few different ways. Hope you've worked out what your machine can do. See you next time.